good day. Today I am going to take cost accounting. In that we are going to see cost sheet. Before going to the main topic, what is meant by cost? The amount spent for producing a particular product is called cost. That is the actual expenditure incurred on a given thing or the notional expenditure attributable to a given thing. It is called cost. For finding a product cost, we have to calculate all the expenses which is directly involved in production or indirectly involved in production. For that, we are calculating cost sheet. So, meaning of cost sheet. According to CIMA London, cost sheet is a statement which provides for the assembly of the detailed cost for a center or a cost unit. It is also a periodical statement. So, cost sheet means it is the overall expenditure for producing a particular product which we produce in a statement form is called cost sheet. So, the expenditure which has been incurred upon product for a period is extracted from the financial books and the store's records and set out in a memorandum statement. This is what about cost sheet. So for preparing cost sheet, we have to know about what are the expenses involved in preparing a cost sheet and where it should be applicable and where should be it will present in the cost sheet, that we have to know. So this diagrammatic representation will clearly defines you where the expenses will come under which headings. First, elements of cost. For every product we have to incur basic things, that is known as elements of cost. Without these things we cannot produce any material or any product. That is, first one, material. So for producing a particular product, material plays an important role and more than 60% of the cost what we have incurred in material. So it is an important thing whether it is direct material or indirect material. Then comes labor. For converting the raw material into a product, labor is required. So next major role plays labor. So labor may be direct labor or indirect labor. So the labors which are directly involved in converting the raw material into finished goods is called labor. And other indirect labor means who helps for finalizing the product into packaging materials or distributions, they are all called indirect labors. Then expenses. The expenses what we have incurred for factory overheads, office and administration overheads and selling and distributions are called expenses. So first thing is material, then labor, then first thing material, labor and overheads, expenses. So this material is further divided into direct material and indirect material, and labor is further divided into direct labor and indirect labor, and the expenses is again we are divided into direct expenses and indirect expenses. So in everything we have direct and indirect. So the expenses which are directly involved in these elements are collectively known as prime cost, that is direct material, direct labor and direct expenses. This is known as prime cost. And if we add indirect things altogether, is known as collectively known as overheads, that is indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses, that is known as overheads. This overhead is further subdivided into factory overheads, then office and administration overheads, then selling and distribution overheads. So again I am repeating, elements of cost, material, labor, expenses. These things are further divided into direct and indirect. If we add all the direct things are known as prime cost. So direct material, direct labor, direct expenses altogether is known as prime cost. It is an important 2-mark question. What is meant by prime cost? The summation of all direct material, direct labor and direct expenses is called prime cost. Next comes indirect material. So indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses altogether is known as overheads. These overheads are further subdivided into factory overheads, office and administration overheads and selling and distribution overheads. So factory overhead means the expenses which are incurred in the factory comes under this category. So factory overhead is otherwise known as works overhead. So in factory what will be done? Work. So it is otherwise known as work overhead. Next comes, after completing the work in the factory, we will transfer the things to office and administration for taking orders and all. So this office and administration, the expenses which are incurred in office and administration comes under this category. This is known as cost of production. And selling and distribution. After completing all this work, we have to sell the product. So for selling the product, we have to distribute the products to other customers. So for that we will distribute the products. So the expenses which are related under selling and distribution comes under selling and distribution overheads. This is what about elements of cost. Next, cost sheet format. So this cost sheet is a statement format. Here we won't prepare any accounts. It is a statement format. In this statement we have clearly defined the expenses which will comes under different category and what the name we have to given. So this is an important 10-mark question and it also asks in 5 marks also. So nearly 15 marks we will get from this cost sheet after knowing cost sheet. So first cost sheet. So this column is particulars, rupees and rupees. This is details what we are giving here. We will mention this is the inner column and this one is outer column. So first we start with opening stock of raw materials. In every sum they won't give opening stock of raw materials and closing stock of raw materials. But in few sums in 10 marks they may ask opening stock of raw materials, closing stock of raw materials. In that, if they gave opening stock of raw materials, that we have to calculate with these following adjustments. First starts with opening stock of raw materials, that we have to give in first inner column. Then add purchase of raw materials. So the raw materials which we have purchased, that should be added with the opening stock of raw materials. Then if we are spending any expenses or if we are paying any taxes to purchase that particular product, that we have to add with that material. So these are all comes under this category. So if we add all this final answer we have to put in outer column. Then from that we have to deduct closing stock of raw materials. That is at the end of finalizing the product, that which is not used, that we have to subtract. Then if we sell any scrap materials, from that we will get some income. That also should be deducted. Here what we are doing is we are finding out the cost of a particular product. So any income we are getting from the raw material sales, that we have to deduct from that. So after deducting the things, we will get the final answer, that is cost of material consumed. Cost of material consumed. Next, otherwise if they gave direct material, we can start the sum from direct material. If they gave opening stock of raw material, closing stock of raw materials, this format will apply. Then direct wages. After the direct material or raw material consumed, we have to add direct wages. So already in the chart we have seen the direct material, direct wages and direct expenses are altogether known as prime cost. So next comes direct wages and direct expenses. If we add all these direct things, what will be the answer? Prime cost. Then after the prime cost, we are giving the details to factory overheads. In factory the work will continue. So add factory overheads. Here we have to mention all the expenses incurred in factory to producing a product. Whether we appoint a supervisor or workman, indirect labor, anything we have incurred in this factory, we should add in the factory overhead. Otherwise, the other name for factory overhead is works overhead. So all the expenses we have to incur in these expenses. Then if we find any work in progress in the sum, opening work in progress or closing work in progress, the opening work in progress should be added with the factory overheads, and if we have any closing work in progress, that we have to deduct from the factory overheads. This means we can get works cost or factory cost. If we don't have any work in progress in the sum, simply we remove this and the final answer will be the work cost or factory cost. So first one, raw materials consumed, that answer we will find out. Next we will add direct wages, then direct expenses, it comes prime cost. Then further we will add factory overheads, the expenses which are related to factory we will add under this category. In opening work in progress we should add, and closing work in progress we have to subtract. The final answer will be the work cost or factory cost. Next, after adding the factory overheads, we have to add office and administration overheads. So the expenses which are related to office and administration comes under this category. So here the director's fees, then the manager's salary and other expenses, printing, stationeries, the expenses which are related to office and administration, these expenses comes under this heading, office and administration expenses. That is called cost of production. If in the sum, if they gave finished goods opening and closing finished goods, we have to do some adjustments. So in all we are adding the opening and we are deducting the closing. So opening stock of finished goods, that we should add with the cost of production, that comes under the heading office and administration, and we have to deduct closing stock of finished goods. After deducting we will get cost of goods sold. So till now we have find out prime cost, then factory cost or works cost, then cost of production, cost of goods sold, and finally we are adding selling and distribution overheads. Here the expenses which are related to sales and distributions, that comes under this heading. The expenses may be advertisement expenses, travels expenses, then distribution expenses, delivery van charges. This all comes under this category, selling and distribution overheads. That gives cost of sales. After we have to leave one line, then we have to subtract from sales. In sum, if they gave sales, we have to subtract sales from cost of sales. The final answer will be the profit. If the sales value is higher, it will be profit. If the sales value is less, it will be loss. So this is what about cost sheet. Next we can solve one problem. This is the problem. So here I gave a simple problem which is based on the format what I have given. So just explaining the format, we will do the sums. So from the following particulars, prepare a statement showing raw materials consumed, prime cost, works cost, cost of production and profit. So here some alignment is missing, so just listen. First one is opening, that is 1/1/2002 is the opening information, and 31/12/2002 is the closing information of the sums. So raw materials, finished goods, work in progress, then purchase of raw materials, carriage inwards, direct wages, direct expenses, works overhead, administration overhead, selling and distribution, and sale of finished goods. Here we will solve. See, first thing we have to start this problem with raw materials. Here raw materials is opening stock of raw materials. So opening stock of raw materials is 25,000. Here I have mentioned 25,000. Then add purchase of raw materials. So here gave purchase of raw materials, that is 21,000. Purchase of raw materials 21,900. That we have to add with the opening stock of raw materials. Next, carriage inwards, that is which is related to purchase of raw materials, that is 1,100. If we add these three, we will get 48,000. From that we have to deduct closing stock of raw materials. In closing stock of raw materials, in the sum they gave it as 26,200. Closing stock of raw materials 26. Only one information here they gave, whether in the sum if we find any sale of raw materials sold, we have to add it in the inner column, then we should put in outer column. So after deducting from this, we have get 21,800, that is cost of material consumed. Then we have to add direct wages. Direct wages in sum 17,200. Direct wages 17,200. Then direct expenses, that is 1,200. So totally 40,200. So raw material information we have done. Then direct wages, direct expenses. If we add all these things, we will get prime cost, that is 40,200. Next step, what we have to do is factory overheads. Add factory overheads, that is factory overheads. Here the information is given directly, so no other further informations. If we have further informations, we have to work out in the inner column, then we will transfer the amount to the outer column. Here factory overheads, here gives works overhead. So works overhead is otherwise known as factory overhead. So factory overhead amount 9,100. So 9,100 we added. Then we are saying any information related to factory overhead. Yes, we are having work in progress. So work in progress, opening work in progress is 8,200 and closing work in progress is 9,100. So opening we should add with factory cost and closing we should subtract from factory overheads. Finally we got works cost or factory cost, that is the amount 48,400. So again I am repeating, any informations related to factory overhead, if they given in the sum, we have to calculate all these things and put the answer in the inner column, then transfer it to the outer column, then make adjustments with the opening work in progress and closing work in progress. After deducting, it will get works cost or factory cost. Next, after factory, where we have to go? Office and administration overheads. So for office and administration, here the same thing. No other informations about office and administration expenses. We are directly transferring the amount to office and administration, which is 3,200. Office and administration 3,200. Office and administration is 3,200. After adding with works cost, we are getting cost of production. If the opening stock of finished goods and closing stock of finished goods is not there in the sum, this answer will be known as cost of sales. If it is there, this answer will be changed it as cost of production. So opening stock of finished goods should be added with the cost of production, and closing stock of finished goods that we have to subtract from cost of production. This all calculation should be done in the outer column. So finally we get cost of goods sold, that is 53,200. Again I am repeating, office and administration expenses, the expenses which are related to office and administration, if they given in the sum, we should add with this and this should be done in the inner column. The total we have to transfer it to outer column, and then we have to add opening stock of finished goods, that with that column we have to add, then less closing stock of finished goods we have to subtract from the total. Finally we will get cost of goods sold. And here comes the final answer. Add selling and distribution overhead. Same thing, no other informations about selling and distribution. Directly they have given selling and distribution overheads. So for the selling and distributions, if they gave any travel expenses or advertisement expenses, selling expenses, distribution expenses, or delivery van expenses, that should be calculated under this heading in the inner column. The total should be transferred to outer column. Nothing, no information is there, so we are directly substituting the amount to the selling and distribution overheads, that is 4,200. The final answer what we have find out is cost of sales. Cost of sales, that is 57,400. Here sale of finished goods is given, so this we take it as sales. Otherwise we have to find out the answer. So here sale of finished goods, this is what sales. So sales 72,300. From this we have to deduct. So we will get 14,900, that is called profit. So with this we are coming to an end. So thank you.